welcome to the 5th episode of Confessions of a Rock and Roll Cameraman. I'm Pat Cameraman, here in conversation with my good friend, Tony Wanamaker.
Thank you, Pat.
Tony, today is a variety day. We've talked already about the Rolling Stones, we've talked about rock and roll, but today we're going to Africa.
Yeah, man.
And you actually went to Africa with Much Music?
Yeah, I went there once with Much Music and 2 other times with other producers.
Right, okay. Well, let's delve into it.
Yeah.
Because I've never been to Africa. And I guess the year was what, 1990 when you went?
They were in the 90s and again in the 2000s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's start with your travels with Much Music. Who were you with and why were you there?
Much Music had an international show called Clip Trip, and it meant that we traveled the globe following the culture. And in culture, everybody knows it's poetry and music. Well, we're a music station. We're covering music ostensibly, right? But it was a great catalyst for us to meet and greet the people who actually make different music. Like, for example, Calypsonian, right? You might find that. We could find in India, Urdu music, for example. Or in Africa, it was amazing. So we were working with a lot of indigenous people, particularly Maasai Mara. I met the Maasai in the Maasai Mara and in the Serengeti Plains.
Well, sure. And in that time in popular culture, we were seeing people like Paul Simon and certainly Peter Gabriel, like reaching into that culture and saying, you know, hello world, let's look at this.
At that time, they were pushing the envelope because they were working on the notion of apartheid. It was a terrible thing that we still had with clearly laws about discrimination. That was South Africa. I spent a lot of time, Pat, at the time in equatorial East Africa. So I'm working in the countries of Tanzania and Kenya. And so for understand geographically, Kenya is kind of just a little north of the equator, and they call it the Northern Hemisphere, and that's where you'll find the Serengeti. And south of that, and I stand corrected, I always get that mistaken. That is the Maasai Mara, and south in Tanzania is the Serengeti.
So on this particular trip, who are you there with?
I'm with 2 stellar human beings, and one is a producer named Morgan Fleury. Love you, Morgan. One of the best. And Diego Fuentes, one of the greatest, gregarious guys you could travel in the world with. And he spoke Spanish. 1/3 of the world speaks Spanish. Kind of a nice thing to have when we're traveling.
Yeah. So Morgan.
Yes.
Tell me about her, because she's a woman.
Yeah.
Going into, I guess you're with the Maasai at this time.
Yeah. We are working in rural Africa, so there's not a lot of amenities. There's not too many 4- and 5-star hotels, although there's 4- and 5-star encampments.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
But I wanted to just broach on Morgan for a second, because she's a white woman going into a patriarchal society, I would imagine. Yeah. And what did you witness in that for her?
It's tough going. In a lot of countries, the notions of gender equality don't exist like we're finding here in North America. And it's taken us a long time to get there, as we all know. And certainly we have a great female staff, I might say. We've got Giggles here on the left. There's Katie, and Elizabeth's over there in a long lens, and Trina's over there doing her ting. And this is normal. This is status quo.
Well, for us,
but
absolutely.
In some places, some various parts of the world, sadly, a little bit lagging behind, and we're coming to terms. Morgan wasn't a token woman producer. She was the genuine. She's a real producer, and that's why I loved her. She's the genuine article. And so she took it was difficult for her. However, she persevered because actions speak louder than words, and she led by example. So people fell in place, and people loved her. She was great. But if that didn't get you, Diego Fuentes got you, because he had a smile the size of Colombia.
Yeah.
And people loved him, and I loved his company. We were great pals on the road. It made all the difference. Chemistry is everything. And you know this as a band person. Yeah. If you're on the road and you're with 4 people, you better have good chemistry, or you're going to hate the way each other brush their teeth in a week.
Now, how long were you down there with these 2?
We would go down there for weeks on end. The culmination of all my trips, I probably spent 2 months in East Africa. What was really great is I had a chance to visit the Big 5.
Oh, the Big 5?
Yeah, man.
McDonald's, Burger King, Mr. Sub. What are we talking here?
Those are all my food groups, incidentally. But however, in Africa, at the period, and this is the romantic, colonialist Africa I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, because I was only joking about those Big 5.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the big trophy hunting
Perfect.
games.
That's exactly what it was, Pat.
Ugh.
They called them the trophies because they were conceived as the 5 most difficult, most ferocious animals to hunt. And back then, when you said you're going to go out and shoot some animals, that meant you were going to shoot them. Today, we got them, we film them, thank goodness, right? But that was colonial Africa at the turn of the 20th century. So you have to understand, you have people like Hemingway who will show up there later in the 30s. At that period earlier, you have guys like Lord Delamere, right, who are considered to be, if you will, when you think of a quintessential sort of British bloke, right, somebody with a certain amount of dignity and aristocracy, you're probably thinking of Lord Delamere. And as a matter of fact, when I checked into a very nostalgic hotel called the Norfolk Hotel, and I loved it because Hemingway's on the same apron that I was drinking Tusker beer on.
Wow.
It was pretty cool. And I was at the Lord Delamere Terrace.
Oh my God, he's got his own terrace still. So the big 5, let's talk about them. Now, you're not out there to shoot them,
No, I'm out there to videotape them.
You're out there to videotape
Super
them
exciting.
the proper way.
Yeah, and the big 5 are lion, leopard, right? And rhino and elephant, and lastly, the African buffalo, or I like to refer to as the Cape buffalo, which is generally called. Yeah.
Yeah, ferocious.
It's really difficult, by the way, to see the leopard. The leopard's confusing for me. It took me a while to get used to it. Leopard skin, if you want, what's the difference between a leopard and cheetah visually? Leopards have the big rosettes on their skin, right? On their coat rather, and the cheetahs have, if you will, polka dots.
Yeah.
And also they have a little bit of a black thing here for sunlight, right? So,
And don't cheetahs have little skinny legs to make them go
yeah,
fast?
it's hard for me, Pat, because they really look the same in the savannah, and you see them sticking up in the grass, right? But it wasn't until my last visit in Africa I finally got to see a leopard, so I achieved seeing all 5. You'll see a lot of Cape buffaloes. There are quite a few of them. They're all sitting there laying on top of each other in the mud. Lions are they can be difficult, but it's hard to get action. And when I was filming lions, I was with one group and I was waiting there a very long time until finally the lion managed to lift his head up and roar like the MGM logo. And I took full advantage, and that was the shot. I hit it. That's a pay, and then he went back to sleep. But when that happens, the radio calls go out, and every Land Cruiser comes in, and every tourist wants to see this. And I understand, because they want to see the big 5.
Right. So they just descend on it.
Yeah.
So this is the 90s.
Yep.
So, it's some time ago. Certainly they probably have better amenities now. But what was it like to be there in the 90s? They probably don't have lots of fresh water. They don't have lots of things for a Canadian boy.
Yeah.
To really acclimatize to. There's a lot that you have to acclimatize to.
Oh yeah. Well, number one, the sun's really hot on me because I'm near the equator, so I always like to wear my billabong, right? And I like it. Big fedora, cuts a lot of light, easy for me to still shoot. I got activity. I wear this because a lot of times it's either dusty, all right, or there's a carcass of an animal that's kind of ripe, and this kind of takes the edge off for me.
Right.
I wear a vest. I usually wear the safari gear is apropos. People wonder why. Well, I wear the shirt a good friend of mine who wrote this book, Dolphin's Tooth, Bruce gave me. It's from he was a Nahanni River guide up in the Northwest Territories. So it's easy to wash, lots of pockets for stuff, right? And it vents nicely when I'm in that climate. The other things, Pat, because you're working in a place not unlike a full resort at Cancun, there isn't the amenities, as you say, and so you got to supply your own. So I always carry this. I'm ex-military. I used to be with the Queen's Own Rifles, and so this is a hangover from that day. But my canteen of water, this is what you need every day. And my rubric was if I came to half a canteen, I would shut down until we got water again.
Right.
Really, if I was in an emergency situation, I'd take these tablets and purify the water, but this would taste like shit. But I managed, but I could hydrate myself.
So hang on a second. You took tablets.
Yeah.
What do? You take water from a source and just drop the tablets in?
I would watch the level of brackish water. Actually, when I was in Haiti, I saw water that was ostensibly brown, and they pumped it through a modern filter, and it was great because the surgeon on the other end poured a glass of water and drank in front of me, as if to say, this is totally fine, you'll be okay.
Right.
So I pursued that. But I carry this here. This is a great filter I picked up at Mountain Equipment Co-op.
Okay, so what does that do?
Well, I would put this in my whatever water. So generally hotels or whatever would have some water. I'd grab that water and then I would purify it quickly through here, and I'd pump this into my container before I pour it here. So my water was clean all day. That way I wouldn't get sick. And you have to understand this. when you're working a documentary, I tend to take the easy route when it comes to sort of, if you will, garnering food. A lot of folks when I was in India say, "Come on out, we're going to have some street food," and I'm all for it, believe me. But I can't afford to get sick. If I get dysentery, I'm out for the rest of the 4 or 5 days. Production wouldn't allow it. Not allow it. They don't provide for it.
And so you even purify the hotel water?
Oh, absolutely, mate.
Really?
Everything going for my ice cubes, everything. I would not. I had to sanitize everything. A lot of clothes sometimes, if I came out of a place that might have had a high density of cholera, for example, or something, a lot of my clothes, my wife would meet me at the airport, and I would strip out of it, put in a garbage bag. Two things. If I felt it was low risk, it would go home and be put in a freezer for 3 days.
Okay.
So to kill off bacteria.
Okay. Yeah.
And if it was really dangerous, and I won't mention those countries because they don't deserve it, I would just leave it in the garbage can at the airport.
At the airport. Oh my gosh. So, but that's not the only. Water is a huge challenge, especially if you're out there and there's nothing to drink or whatnot. Mm-hmm. But what happens if you have a medical emergency? You get sick.
Yep.
And what do you do?
Again, it's all about, you're a group and you depend on each other's back. And one thing I always did, I was very prudent. Before we went on any big trips, I always upgrade my first aid. First aid, AED, CPR. So one of us was always trained so we can kind of help one another in the field.
So as a cameraman,
yeah.
What do you got to take? What do you got to take for that?
Well, a lot of things I would take. Here's something very simple. These are actually for somebody who might have diabetes. These are the insulin shots you take. But I would take this syringe because it was easy for me to carry. And a lot of time, syringes have been used, right? And so this way I knew it was clean, that I wouldn't be picking up any disease.
Oh, wait a minute. They would use a needle a second time.
Second, third, fourth.
Oh,
it's better than needle you don't have, right? So you make do with it. And so I would immediately contact and let them know that I'm carrying my own, use my hypodermic needles. Additionally, on this jacket, when I was in, for example, in the former Soviet Union, we were at a time where we thought the city was going to be taken over, right, with civil insurrection. So in my back, I carried in a plastic envelope all kinds of documents, right, so that I could quickly go to U.S. Embassy.
Right.
And to make sure I could pay my way there, I always carried $1,000 US hidden, right? Cash, because cash is king. Cash is king, or Marlboro cigarettes would get you a cab ride anytime.
Wow. Yeah. You're like the Jason Bourne of camera.
Yeah, really? Nice.
Wow. No, I was just, passports in the back, wrapped in plastic.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Must have gotten hot, though.
It's really hot, and it got hotter when I was in really high climates. Now, I'm not supposed to have this, and I apologize for those, but it's been a long time. This is a bulletproof vest. And this is a light body armor that I bought underground. I think this originally started with Metro Toronto Police. I'm not really sure. But anyways, I wore this for safety for a body shot in some really hot areas. And it was very hot wearing this, but the security felt great. And I was in one really hot spot in Guatemala once. And this is a great thing to have then. Because you don't know. They'll try and take a body shot. And a lot of times I could sneak a camera around there and then not expose my body. But it gave me at least enough confidence, Pat, that I could get back to my job.
Well, a layer of protection.
Yeah.
And there's no holes in it, so thank God you didn't have to test it.
100%. Right? Thank goodness. But a lot of times before 9/11, it was incredible how you could kind of move about airports. And it was unbelievable. Before 9/11, I could take that in overhead baggage.
Oh, yeah, the first Gillette razor.
That's it. I just shave a little bit there. But think of that. And that was only there because the customs officers knew the guy who gave me this, a guy named Leonard Padilla, who was the original bounty hunter. And he's a very good friend of Arnold Schwarzenegger and George W. Bush. Yeah.
So but did you take that knife with you to Africa?
No, I wouldn't carry that. I carried a little jackknife.
Oh, okay.
That was it. My weapon was a 2-ton pencil. And I was busy keeping that baby running. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's, from a guy from Scarborough,
Yep.
a Canada boy.
Yep.
You don't really think about all the little things that you need to survive in Africa.
Yeah, man.
Certainly in Canada, our biggest threat is black flies, mosquitoes in the woods. What about bugs? What'd you do about bugs? Were there bugs?
Yeah, I don't recall. Everybody who spent any time in Northern Ontario knows about the incessant. It could be deer flies, black flies, you name it, mosquitoes. Right. I don't recall. I don't think that. There was one island, actually, in Vancouver's west coast that we were on. Salt Spring, there was no bugs, and it's like, how's that possible? But you need a higher authority to answer that than me, my friend. I don't recall that being the issue. I just know the sun was because he had the equator. I was always pink every day.
Right,
I had to be careful.
Right,
even though I was wearing all kind of manner of sun protection, but it was interesting because we spent time in the Marae and also in the city of Nairobi, which was an interesting thing for me, Pat. Because one of the episodes we talked about Captain Kirk and his friends.
Yes.
And on the way in Nairobi, and this is indicative of all big cities, there's always a period. There's always areas of urban blight.
Okay.
And on the way in, there's a roundabout, and this horrified me. And I saw young Kenyans that were desperate, and they looked like stick figures moving around. And they had one hand on the inhalant and the other hand looking for money.
Wait.
Yeah.
An inhalant of what? Like, first of all, how old were these? When you say kids?
Children.
Like 9, 10?
Oh, easily. Yeah, maybe younger.
Oh, God.
Some of them were laying supine on the ground, maybe unconscious, maybe dead.
And what were they doing? Where did they get this stuff?
Contact cements, rubber cements, they're abundant. All kinds of adhesives in a bag, really cheap and it's easy to inhale. So unfortunately, some took that direction, misdirection in life, and were horribly addicted and horribly in a station in life that I don't think there was much chance of surviving. And that's shocking. I've seen it a lot. I've become conditioned. I've seen more terrible examples of it. But when you're a cinematographer, you are going to see highlights and lowlights, and you need to understand both. And the one thing I went forward with, my brother, is I always made sure if I was going to tell the truth story.
Yeah.
So it's going to be brutal. You edit it later, but this is the truth, and I didn't want to hide stuff. What does that mean, Pat? By analogy, when I was in Guatemala, I was looking for a rural shot of a farmer.
Okay.
I try to avoid stereotypes. I'm adamant I don't do stereotypes. So I was waiting for the moment, and there it was, Pat. Beautiful backlight raking over the back. I could see him bringing in the harvest, right? It looked like it looked something like hay that I would understand.
Right, sure.
And at the back, there's a young man. He's hanging on the back, Pat, and he's got a cell phone. He's talking away. So I like the idea of it's modern.
Yeah.
It's cultural, and it's romantic. It worked for me. It's a great picture.
Nice.
But it wasn't a stereotype, brother.
Right.
And so I watched that. So I was working with people like, look at this. This is beautiful. This is going to be by some of the Maasai women. And this would be something you adorn yourself with.
Oh, yeah.
Very pretty. You'd see those. Really, really nice. I don't wear this anymore. This was a crazy thing. This is a beautiful bracelet that was given to me, right, by a Maasai Prince. And this fella here, I had the chance to meet in Tanzania. And I have close-ups. It might be hard for you, Trina or Elizabeth, to grab that shot. But he was a prince of his community. And if you see, he's wearing a lion's mane, and that's to represent the fact he actually had to kill the lion, sadly. He had to, and for necessity, not for sport. This lion had interloped. It was inside his domicile, and they used like dung and mud sort of perimeter. And inside that, they have their cattle, and the cattle is a lifeline for the Maasai. And so he had to kill that, so he wears that. But he's a prince of the community, and I was really, really impressed for him. Super intelligent guy. He could speak Swahili, of course,
right.
English, a little bit of French, and he knew, Pat, that if he walked as far as that horizon, there was a place he could uplink and talk to the rest of the world on satellite.
Wow, because that's fascinating to me. The fact that, first of all, he's this alpha male in Africa. He has to fend off the community with lions and whatnot. I mean, it's amazing. But also the other day we talked about Star Trek and Gene Roddenberry.
Yes.
And
excellent point.
Lieutenant Uhuru.
Yeah. What was incredible about that, and this was a realization, on the way in, we would go in and resupply in Nairobi, right?
Okay.
What an interesting, exciting city, but a couple of things. And on the way in, we'd pass by this park called Uhuru Park. Uhuru Park, I stand corrected. Uhuru Park. And that means freedom in Swahili. And Gene Roddenberry was actually cognizant of this and changed the name to Uhura, but the idea of putting that notion of freedom in. So again, we had talked in great length about the representation of the character by Michelle Nichols, and this was that added bonus value. I mean, legitimizing.
Yeah, and seriously, and for the story that you told us in that episode, like the fact that she was a black woman at that time, and symbolically her name was Freedom.
Yeah,
I mean, wow,
fantastic.
blows my mind.
I love it. And thank you, Gene, for that. That was genius.
Yeah, seriously. So let's get back to the big five, because you're there to shoot them as well as the community and the music and the culture. Out of all of it, like I would think the lion, a lion chasing me down would be pretty scary.
Yes.
A cheetah, not so much, because of the skinny legs.
Fair enough.
And the tiny mouth can't possibly eat me. But what would you say is the most scary animal?
Well, I went there thinking that it was a lion. But I only found the lion sleeping every day, and I had to wait till it wake up and roar and go back to sleep. And I thought, well, that's not so intimidating, but beautiful to watch.
Sure.
But oddly enough, it's the elephants, and I was shocked by that, because you think it's a sort of an innocuous animal.
Well, elephants are
super
so
dangerous.
Yeah, I mean they seem so nice with the tusks and the trunk, and why are they dangerous?
Well, and that's
they're not even meat eaters.
No, and I learned a long time ago, when I'm in country, take advice from the people who live there.
Right.
And when the Maasai told me, the guys in the red tunics said, "Hey, the only animal we're afraid of is the elephant." I went, what? Why is that? You can fend yourself off from everything else. And they said, "Tony, it's really simple. You can climb a tree, but the elephant can knock it down. When they're in stampede mode, they're dangerous."
When they're in stampede mode.
Yeah, and I was bivouacked with a good friend of mine, Diego Fuentes, who I traveled a lot of the world with. And Diego, I love you. Good seeing you, man. And so Diego and I were in the same camp, and Diego said to me, Pat, he said, "Tony, I don't want to wake you up, and I'm a guy who snores. I really snore a lot." And I went, "What? Why is that an issue?" And he says, "Well, I'm going to wake you up, and if I do, I want you to whack me with a stick." Okay. All right. You're serious, right? You want me to hit you with a stick? And I said, "I won't do that." And he said, no, I'll drive you crazy. You want to hit me with a stick. So what I have here is an actual mace from a Maasai warrior. These things are great. They walk around these a lot. A lot of times they do this to tell me to shut up, which is great. A lot of times they can get an animal attacking and go and throw it like a boomerang and knock it out.
Oh, so it's a weapon.
Yeah. So I was out, and we use this for the House of Commons, Parliament, the mace. But so what was interesting was I was out one time having lunch in the savannah, and the Maasai come up to me and gave me a little tap, and he went, and he was getting ready to line one up. It was hyenas coming in to attack us.
Ooh.
Right? And that animal does scare me. But back to your point. So about the scary animal. So in the middle of the night, I feel like there's this orange flakes, pixie dust. It's kind of a weird, ethereal kind of vibe going on. And I'm thinking, I had a long day. I'm probably enjoying a really great dream, man. I'm in maybe Barbarella with Jane Fonda. Things are happening.
Sure.
It's kind of cool. And then I finally have the courage, Pat, because this reminds me of another camp when the generator shut down.
Oh.
And I finally looking at the flap, and
Right.
all I see, bright orange hues moving. And I thought, oh my God, now I'm super terrified because I don't know what it is. I don't know what's happening. And so like any red-blooded Canadian, Pat, I dove under the sheets and I hid and went back to bed.
Excellent.
So in the morning, the day of discovery, I opened my eyes. I'm still here. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, I found out that there was an African stampede, man. The genuine article, the elephants were stampeding our camp. And what they do to stave off, right, us being trampled to death.
No, when you say like a stampede, you're talking about
a pack of pachyderms.
like a pack of many-ton elephants.
Yeah, and all coming through. And these guys have the tusk, and they're coming in my direction. And what they do is they quickly roll oil canisters in, oil drums, and they put them as a spear in the front. So our encampment is behind that spear. So when the elephants come in, they're diverted because of the fire, and they split.
Wow.
That's the only way to control that. So I woke up in the morning, by the way, great sleep. And also Diego was pissed off at me.
Okay.
Because I managed to get back to sleep. He was snoring. Diego, it is really loud.
Yeah.
I think I did hit him with a stick.
Oh, God.
Because he was really sour with me in the morning. He had some bruises. I lost my mind. I'm sorry, man, but you did say. But yeah, that's how I have.
Well, his snoring's like an elephant call, for God's sakes. You got a whole stampede.
I had not thought of that. You know what? That was probably the reason why. I could have triggered that.
Yeah,
Diego, you got some splaining to do.
Mating call. Tony, as always,
Thank you.
It's a treasure. It is to relive these experiences with you. You know, I kind of feel like I've been to Africa vicariously through the lens. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in. And please, if you subscribe to our mailing list, we will send you out a medley of the 80s manuscript, essay, and we'll also put you in line for some awesome draws. And you'll be able to see some great additional content that you don't get on the show. And special times with Tony. And I think that's it.
Well, one thing I'd like to give a shout out. So we have
Sure.
our all-girl squad that we call the New Go-Go's, by the way, okay?
Okay.
And the New Go-Go's are working the Canon cameras. And we're working R5 and R6 cameras because they have 4K acquisition. And in my opinion, I've worked with a lot of, and I have a competitor product as well. Canon products, in my opinion, sharp focus. I love it, right? And menus where they're supposed to be, and a color science you can't beat. So thank you. And thank you, ladies.
Yes.
The Go-Go's.
Indeed.
The New Go-Go's.
Yes, because podcasts just don't happen by themselves, people. They happen with many, many people.
But I think at some point they might revamp the name to Giggly and the Go-Go's.
Giggly and the
We'll see.
Go-Go's.
Right, Kate?
Nice. So thank you again for tuning in. We hope you found this special, and we really look forward to seeing you next time.
Next
Cheers.
time.